Welcome to That's a Hard No, the podcast about learning to say no and set boundaries to live our best lives. I'm your host, Heather Drago. You may think, because of this podcast, that I'm a boundary setting expert, but I'm not. I'm an expert at struggling to set boundaries. But you know what? I'm working on it, and it is getting easier. Follow along with me as I learn from fellow strugglers and experts so that you too can start saying no without feeling fear, guilt, or FOMO.
You don't know where to go. Unfriendly applications got you feeling low. You're not sure what to do. Weight of expectations is coming down on you. There's a phrase you should know. Tastes so much sweeter than hello. That's a hard no.
Koinonia is a word in Greek that is most easily translated into community in English. In Greek, however, koinonia means so much more than that. It means joint participation, intimacy, closeness, and a group of people who come together. It's what you find when you're surrounded by people who you trust and love. When we think about finding community, usually we focus on finding people with shared interests, sort of our English definition of community. What we really need, though, is koinonia. We need that real connection, and that can be a real daunting task if you're on the outside looking in. I think about the power of community a lot. You've met the Gens. We've talked to people from Connecting for Kids and the Ohio Alliance to End Sexual Violence, all people and places who I so value for their ability to bring people together. In our post-COVID world, I feel like so many of us lost that sense of community. When we retreated inside to escape the pandemic, we all but lost our strongest ties to our communities. Friends you didn't need to see, family that didn't have to make Thanksgiving. Our isolations weren't just physical. And meeting people with similar interests, let alone build a network of intimate connections, all gone. Some of us innovated. My adult kids have built friendships and play weekly games, all from the comfort of their bedrooms. They've made community where they could, in their cases on Discord or Roll20. But so many years later, I still feel like I'm building back where I was 4 years ago. How do we find each other again? Today's guest, Angela Yost Melfi, has been building community around the world for over a decade. Through her company, Threads Worldwide, Angela has helped conscious consumers and fair trade makers find each other and build communities they can be proud of. She knows the impact of self-empowerment, the importance of setting boundaries, and saying no. So Angela, thanks for coming on the show. I'm so happy to finally meet you.
Thanks for having me, Heather.
So let's start with sort of a big kind of overarching question, and that is if someone wants to build community, how should they start? And maybe tell us a little bit about how you started.
Yeah, so the way that I started Threads Worldwide was with my two best friends. We had traveled all over the world together, and whenever we found ourselves traveling, we always inevitably found ourselves in the coffee shops. We always talked about how we were killing time between meals while we were traveling. And we would always find ourselves in the coffee shops dreaming about what we wanted to create together. And really before the idea of Threads even came through, it was how do we do more together? How do we spend more time together? How do we go into business together? What does that look like? So that was really our beginning. And once the idea of Threads came through, it was just obvious that we were going to launch it together. To build community, I think it really starts with a passion that you have for something. It doesn't matter what that thing is, although I find that community is built faster when that passion is around something that's possible, as opposed to anti something seems to grow slower than if there is a possibility. So, and then it's really about going out and speaking that possibility. And if you can speak that possibility um, to enough people, you start to build a community. And community really can be of any size, but there's some kind of shared passion, shared mission, shared goal. And if you can keep speaking that possibility into that community, it's going to organically grow, and the people in that community are going to come and be fulfilled for being
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm. And this really resonates with me. Like, as a woman owned business, I've sort of built a community of, I call them creative partners that I work with day in and day out. They're other women business owners that I rely on for, the two Jens that have been on all the time on our podcast, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
writer and the designer. But then we also have this other circle, this other network of different marketing service providers that and creatives that we bring in, and it's really become a community, like a team
Yeah.
collaboration of people, and so we've helped each other grow our networks, and helped each other thrive. And then with
Yeah.
this podcast, I feel like this has just been a silly little passion project of mine that has
Yeah.
nothing to do with marketing, but I really feel like it's resonating with people, and we're building a community,
Mm-hmm.
and my team here has been helping me grow, and yeah, it's just it's really a lot easier, I think, to build something when you feel passionate and positive about it, because because you're talking about something you care about.
Mm-hmm.
There's that energy that builds, and then you can translate that into making whatever it is you're trying to grow, as opposed to griping about something.
Right. I mean, you could sure rally a community around griping.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's something for myself, sort of a tell for me when I'm on to a passion is when you almost can't get me to shut up about it. I
Yeah.
just talk and talk and talk and talk and
Yeah.
talk, and it's just naturally flowing out of me.
Yeah.
And when you find that thing, find your people. And there's a really great TED, I think it's TEDx, I can't remember. I think it might be TED Talk actually. It's 5 minutes. It's called The First Follower. Have you ever seen it?
No.
It is
Fascinated.
so much fun. And it's also about how what can you go join and add your fuel, your uniqueness, your spark to build that community. So I think that there's a lot, and one of the thing about this TED Talk specifically is about, everybody thinks that they need to be a leader. Well, what if you go find something that you're passionate about and you be that first follower to have that thing
Mm.
come into existence? So that's another thing as well. If you're intimidated by starting a community, you don't go find something. Go
Mm-hmm,
find
mm-hmm.
and be a part of that and breathe your life and your energy and your skills and resources into that's already happening.
Right. There are a lot of great organizations doing a lot of amazing things. Like, how can you apply your skill set? You don't necessarily have to be a public speaker or something. You can, you're an accountant and you can help that nonprofit by
Yes.
offering your skills, right?
Yes.
Whatever it is.
Go be part of something bigger than
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. So tell me about, you talked about having a passion for a mission. And I know you didn't want to focus too much on your business in this conversation, but I mean, as an example of following a mission and helping people, your business does that. I found myself going down the rabbit hole and
Oh, good.
saving things in my shopping cart that
Learning about. Oh, wow, fun. I love to hear that.
beautiful stuff. But I'm really impressed with the mission and how you're helping women, and kind of, I want to hear more about that. And I want to hear about, like, how you saw the need, like in your travels when you met these women,
Mhm.
like what you perceived was missing for them, and
Mhm.
how you decided to go about helping them.
Yeah, so Threads, we're on this mission to build a global community of women who remind each other of this power and the potential that we already have inside of us. Like, we talk about when we first started, we knew we didn't want to use the word help. We didn't even really
Mm-hmm.
want to use the word empower, but there wasn't a better word because empower can also mean help, but just like a little bit nicer. And so we were talking with one of our partners, and she said, you know what we do? We remind we remind each other of the power that we have. And we actually have a collection called our Remember collection,
Mm.
which is just that. It's remember, and then various things that you belong. Remember you are loved. Remember you are enough. And so that's really our mission, is to build this global community, global, like with the partners as much as with the women here in the U.S. And the way that we knew that we wanted to do this was on these travels, when we would see the way that women were living. And mostly we saw women and men, sorry, women and children living this way. It just wasn't correlate to the extreme talent that these women have. They make, like you saw on our website, they make these beautiful things,
Beautiful stuff.
and they really only have access to sell to a tourist. And so they have this amazing talent. They have these great resources. Most of our things are made from really cool materials like bullhorn and seeds. They have that. What we have is access to a strong market. Most women wear jewelry, or at least know people who wear jewelry. So we have this really strong market. We can connect the two, and that's like the resource that we can bring to the equation. And then from that, we really built this community of women here in the US who can tap into something bigger in whatever way that they want to participate, and get connected into that global community and get cheered on inside the community here for what they're doing, the money they're earning, the trips they're earning, the flexibility they have, the way that they're growing beyond being scared of hearing no. Like there's so many things that come out of the community that we built, that's built around this global mission.
That's amazing. Um, so as I was perusing your site and looking at all these beautiful things and reading about your mission, I started to think about fair trade and about, I always try to veer the conversation around boundaries and no, and I know that I'm trying to be more intentional about my purchases, about not succumbing to fast fashion, about shopping resale, about shopping fair trade. And I feel like that's a big way, as humans, as consumers, we can set a boundary around what we're consuming, by making sure we're buying from craftsmen and local people and other people in other parts of the world who deserve fair trade.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
I am delighted to hear that you and anyone is thinking that way, because we as Americans, I heard somebody call it this. She called us the comfortable consumer. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really where we are. And you could pick up your phone, you could have something to you the next day. And I mean, I do that as much as anybody else. And at the same time, there's this real responsibility that I think if we took on could really truly shift the way the world is done. So, whenever, I mean, you named the places to shop from: secondhand, small batch, ethically made, really being mindful of who is making the items, which can be hard to do. Sometimes it takes some effort, but at least it takes a mindfulness of, do I need that thing? Do I need it now? Could I find it in a different way? And I'll tell a story. We right now, right in this very moment, our partners in India are really struggling with the amount of work that they have. And one of the things is that while the demand for fair trade is going up, it's not going fast enough in comparison to the consumption and output from the I'll call big box stores, right? The conventional ways of things being made. And I just think about every single time that I go and buy something, if I don't know where it's made, there's a high chance that there could be slave labor involved, that there could be, at least not great working conditions for the people. They're not paid well.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's also contributing to that company making more money and having more profits, so that they can go back and continue this really um, devastating supply chain.
Yeah.
But if you, everyone who's listening, starts shopping and doing it that way, they're going to pay attention to that. And they're going to
Right.
say, okay, well, what is now the consumer valuing? it really really makes a huge difference. And I just, when I hear about our partners struggling and I hear about them having to go and work with some of these companies just in the interim until their work goes back up, they're making between $1.81 and $2.41 a day.
Wow.
And but they have to do it until the work comes back. And that's one of my jobs. That's one of my jobs, is to get more people shopping and thinking about it in this way, so that, of course, so they can have beautiful threads jewelry on that is, we know who made it. We know Sophia in India made it. We know Sarita in Ecuador makes it. So we know that they have work, but also so more people are thinking about it when they go into the store and they want to buy a t-shirt for
Mm-hmm.
$10.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just always think about who isn't getting paid, because it's
Right.
not Old Navy. Old Navy's getting their money. Walmart's getting
Right.
their money.
And
Who's
also the
not?
pollution.
Yes.
And I
The
mean,
waste.
the amount of water that's wasted just to make a t-shirt. It's like
Yeah.
our client who's in the thrift industry. Like, I think it's like, is it 20 gallons of water? It's like an amazing amount
It's
of
an
water to make a
amazing
pair of
amount.
jeans or a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It's bananas. And
Yeah.
the amount of pollution in the textile industry is bananas. And
And then how much just gets thrown out. I mean, it's
yeah,
it's designed for, if it's $10 and it rips on the second wear,
right.
oh well, I'll throw it away.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, we have to kind of say no to this mindset of just
Mhm.
consume. So in marketing, there are all these words we use, and the one of the words I hate the most is consume or consumer, and I just think of Pac-Man, consume,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I'm like, we're humans, we're human beings, we're not just consumers.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so I try to think about it in that way when we're marketing to people, but as a human, do I still buy things on Amazon sometimes? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
do I still go to the big box grocery store sometimes? Yeah.
Yeah.
What other options do we have? When I
Hmm.
need some bananas, I'm
Hmm.
saying bananas a lot in this episode. But anyway, um,
Well,
but
that's, I don't.
I'm like, there aren't a lot of options. So I feel like unless we intentionally say no to some of where we can
Mhm.
and buy from these alternate sources,
And that
the
it's
more we can.
funny that you give the example of bananas. That's one I use a lot too, is stop and look. Bananas is something that's actually, depending on where you live, it can be a simple thing that you switch out. So you start saying no to the conventional bananas, start saying yes to the fair trade bananas. It's
Mm-hmm,
right there. There's a sticker. It will say fair trade.
mm-hmm,
Some foods, fruit, coffee,
mm-hmm,
chocolate, again, depending on where you are in the country,
mm-hmm.
that's something that you can easily make the switch, and start making a difference. And I just always talk about, and I've interviewed people on this. It's start taking steps. This is not about perfection. We're always
Right.
going to need something. Well, I don't know. Probably some people don't, but I'm probably always going to need a last minute thing from Amazon. Okay, but how can I make as many decisions as I can that move towards dignity for the person who's making the item?
I love that you bring up the word dignity. I think that's amazing. And reading your website, you mentioned like part of the impetus of forming this company was learning about um,
Sex
human
trafficking.
trafficking. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was kind of blanked for a second there. You
Yeah.
you learned about human trafficking, and it really, you wanted to do something. And so I guess I'm very interested to learn more about the women you help and kind of like where they've come from and maybe what skills they've learned through working with your organization, and like where they are now, what's happening with them.
Yes. Yeah, well, I'll talk about a couple women. We work with women in 8 countries. The women that we work with, who specifically have left the sex industry, um, are in India, in Calcutta, and then in Bolivia, in La Paz, and it's endemic there. There's a very big industry, and the women that, like this one woman that we met when we went there in April. So every year, the women who work with us in the United States, they're called socialpreneurs. So it's like social impact entrepreneur. They can earn trips to travel with us. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam in April. This April, last April, we went to Bolivia, and we met this woman. And I'll call her Fiona. That's not her real name, but she was talking about how her husband left her. She had 3 young kids, and they lived in one room. And she would go out and look for work. And when she did that, she would have to lock her kids in that room
Oh my God.
and go and look for work. And imagine, as leaving, like I freak out if I leave my kid for a minute, or no, 10 seconds in the car to go back inside when I get something. Imagine leaving them all day. And so she would come back, and obviously I can't imagine opening that door and just hoping everything's okay. And the mess that she probably came back to, she didn't have money for diapers.
And the
They're not
trauma
in
for the
diapers.
kids too.
And all for the kids trying to take care of themselves. And so finally she realized, if you can just put yourself in that situation, there's no help coming. And the option that she had was she didn't want to leave her kids during the day. So she started taking work at night, so she could lock her kids in at night when they were asleep. And the place to work at night is in the brothels. So she was in the brothels about 7 years. And is the second that she heard about this opportunity, she left. And I say it that way because not all women do. There are some women who there's a lot of domestic violence and just things going on that they can't and don't leave. Well, she left right away, and she's been now with the cooperative. I can't remember now how many years it's been. I think, let's say at least 5 years. And she's a leader in this cooperative. And when we were there, she's saying to us, we need to grow. I know of 6 women right now who want to come and work here, and we need to grow. And so tying it back to us, the I guess I'll say power we have as consumers. I don't like that sentence at all, but like the responsibility again is, if we're shopping from companies like Threads or companies who are doing that kind of work, it creates a demand where then it creates jobs for women to be able to get out of these situations. So that's another goal. I'm like, we need to grow. We need to grow so we have enough demand for the products so we can get these 6 women out of the brothels. And that's just the tippy tip of the iceberg, but it's something.
Amazing. What an amazing story. And it's just so impressive that you can help women in that way. So we'll be right back with Angela after this break. That's a Hard No is brought to you by Clever Girl Marketing, my full service agency specializing in smart, strategic marketing solutions for businesses and nonprofits. Okay, so you're probably wondering, Heather, what's with the podcast about boundaries? Why not marketing? Well, maybe in the future, but for now, it actually does relate, so bear with me here. Smart marketing, strategic marketing, requires knowing what to say no to and why. Businesses and nonprofits get inundated with marketing options and offers every day. We help you cut through all that noise, focus on your specific needs, and develop actionable strategies that are doable and actually make sense. Whether it's websites, SEO, email, social, or traditional channels, we're experienced in all of it. So if you need help figuring out your marketing, visit our website, clevergrowmarketing.com, and get in touch. In the second half of our conversation, Angela and I got a little heavy. The mission of Angela's business is so important and has such a huge impact on the people it touches. I love how she makes her passion into her activism around motherhood, around community, everything Angela holds dear. We talk more about missions that we're passionate about, whether it's common sense gun laws, setting healthy boundaries around work, or the life-changing power of entrepreneurship. So, Angela, tell me, you're a very mission-driven person, obviously. Tell me about your work with Moms Demand Action.
Yeah, so I'm really what do I call it? An advocate. I donate. I do fundraisers, and I haven't volunteered yet. I've gone down to some rallies and things like that, but I haven't volunteered specifically for them yet. I follow Everytown, Sandy Hook, and Moms Demand Action. It's such an important issue for me, really, as a mom of young kids. My daughter is 7, my son is 4, and not to get too depressing, but every day when I drop them off, I think about those parents at Sandy Hook and that experience, and want to do anything that I can to have people thinking about that and voting with gun sense in mind.
Yeah.
We did a fundraiser with Moms Demand Action. We have bracelets that people can customize for any organization that they want. We've had people do them for specific fun runs within their family and their community. We've had people do it for Moms Demand Action. I'm trying to think of Girl Scout troops. Just really anybody who's trying to raise money, we can do a custom bracelet. And so that's what we did for Moms Demand Action. And then we were able to donate $1,000 to
Nice.
Moms Demand Action. Yeah, and I don't know what else to say about that other than it's an important issue for me, and I want to talk about that almost as much as anything else.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's a generation or two of moms now and children who are traumatized, and we've accepted it as normal. My kids are now 22 and 27. Oh my God. Anyway, um,
Oh, how'd that
and
happen?
and I remember the first time my youngest got in the car and said, "Oh, we had an active shooter drill today," and she was describing it to me and said, one of us asked, "Can we use the flagpole to impale someone?" And I just remember I started to cry. Like, why does my child have to learn this? Like, are you kidding me? Um, and I just feel like we've all accepted it as normal. Like, it's normal. Okay, we're just going to teach them what to do when a shooter comes in the
When this
building.
had to happen?
And I remember another time I went to pick up one of them. I don't remember which one. I went to pick them up from high school. They were still like sophomores, so they weren't driving yet. And I went to pick them up, and there were news vans in front of the school, and I immediately went into panic mode and went onto like the local news apps, and it turned out there was a lice outbreak. But that, yeah, it was like a
Yeah,
lice outbreak or
but
something.
that you
And
went to that and had
but
that
like that's the first
experience.
thought I had, and I went into like panic mode. And I think it was last fall. Was it last fall when the Michigan State shooting happened? There, I don't know. It's like one every day, right?
I
It's like
know.
it's like a big blur. The same day, that same night that it happened, there was an active shooter lockdown where my youngest goes to art school, and we were getting the terrifying texts. And they were. Oh no, it was last year because they were still in the dorm. Um, they were fine. They were locked down, but it was terrifying. It was terrifying. Like, you just don't know anymore. And I I applaud what you're doing. I support some of the same organizations you do, because I just can't believe we're allowing this to be normal, and we're teaching our children this is the norm. And every other country in the world has mental illness, and they don't have the same problem. So it's not. I mean, it's just like you said, common sense. Like, just right. And so I feel like it's a hard no for me as a mom and as a human. Like, I don't even know what to say about it.
I'm a one issue voter now. I go to Moms Demand
Yeah.
Action. I see who they endorse, and that's who I'm voting for. If somebody, asks me who my opinion on so and so, what are they going to do about gun sense? That's where I am. I mean, similar. My sister in law was at Columbine. She was there. She was a junior. She was okay.
Mm,
She lived through the first of it that set this, what I'm going to say disgustingly as precedents, that now has us being like, when was that one? Which one was that? Oh, I don't even remember that. Oh, I didn't even hear about, like, it is so commonplace in such a disgusting way that people are getting numb to it. And like our kids, my kids on last Friday had a lockdown, and we didn't know it turned out to be an accident, but we didn't know for 10 minutes. We didn't know that it was not real, and everyone responded amazing. The police were there, the administration did a great job, the teachers were in tears, but they did a great job. And the fact that how is this, how is
why?
this,
Yeah.
and then my kids come home and they were fine. They're like, oh, we had a lockdown today. I mean, they are a little bit young to really know. They don't know what it's for, so they weren't freaked out in that way. But I mean, just to know that this is, oh, I don't know, we're on the
The other
same
thing
page.
I always catch myself screaming at the news, I made fun of my grandmother who raised me about screaming at the television when the
And
news
here
was
you
on, but
are.
here I am.
Yep.
Is that they say, so many people killed, but, and, only so many people killed, and this many people injured, but they survived, right? And everyone's like, oh, phew, only that many people. And I'm like, no, you don't understand.
One.
Like, the people who survive, their
Yeah.
lives are impacted forever. Their families' lives are impacted forever. Some of these injuries are devastating injuries that impact the quality of their lives forever. And so there's this whole, you know, slew of people affected by this every
Mm-hmm.
day,
Mm-hmm.
and it's normal. And I don't know. I try not to get onto the political bandwagon too much. I try to make this a very welcoming, open
Mm-hmm.
community. Every
Mm-hmm.
all opinions are welcome here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But my whole thing is, if you say you're pro-life, then you're pro-life. And that
Mm.
means we don't want people killing each other in schools or churches and synagogues with guns.
And I just think it's a simple solution. I mean, I personally don't have guns. We're not a hunting family. And if you are okay, I get that. That's not what personally what I'm talking about. I'm talking about assault rifles,
Right.
background checks, some
100%.
some basics.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure where you live, but where I live, there are hunting
Colorado.
seasons and there's a
Yeah.
lot of hunters, and yeah, and
Yeah.
I totally respect that
No
completely.
problem. You get
100%.
a license like you should,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
you have to have a license to kill a deer.
Yeah.
How is this
Yeah.
different? And I feel like if
Yeah.
you are a gun owner, I just think a lot of people would get that. Like, oh yeah, of course I should register, just like I register my car.
Yeah. Exactly. You register this 2-ton vehicle that could hurt somebody.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah, exactly. So, okay, well, we're in agreement there. We've solved
There we
everything.
go.
All
There we
done.
go. I love it. All solved.
Easy peasy. If
Yeah.
everyone just did what we said, everything would
I
be all
know.
right.
My gosh, wouldn't that be great?
I've literally screamed that in the middle of the kitchen. If the world would just do what I say to
Just
do,
listen
it
to
would be so
me.
much better. And my husband's like, yeah, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, because someone else with a different, someone else somewhere else with a different opinion saying the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So anyway, um, so I always, anytime I have the opportunity to talk to a fellow woman entrepreneur who's working with other women entrepreneurs throughout the world, I always want to pick their brains, because I know what a struggle it is for me. Even now, it's like 8 or 9 years in, and I love what we're doing. We go through these cycles, these growth cycles. We're in the middle of the rubber band is stretched really tight right now, and things are tough. And literally was on the phone on the way here today, like, just kind of like, whew, we're in one of those cycles right now, and it's I'm really
Of growth.
struggling to say no, and it's
Okay, yeah.
exciting and fun and everything, but it's still exhausting. And so I'm just really interested to learn about, where do you set boundaries, or what difficulties have you come across as a business owner and a working mom,
Mm-hmm.
that you've had to teach yourself or put in place in order to, not lose your mind.
You're not losing my mind. That's the goal. When so before COVID, we were on track to double between 2019 and those first 3 months of 2020. We really had hit our stride. And at the time, all of our business, we barely did anything online. Everything was women getting together in community to shop, hear about the stories, like that. And obviously, that all stopped in March and of March of 2020. And it was sometime, I think, July 2022. So however many years that, 2 years and something years later. And I just had this moment that I remember I was standing outside of our office, and I just said to my business partner, enough, enough. This no longer is the trajectory I will live my life. I was only going to sleep when I was getting sort of that nauseated feeling of
Oh
tired.
no.
I'd say that's when I would fall asleep, and it was day after day after day. And so I finally had this thing of like, this isn't why I started this company.
Mm-hmm.
I started this for fair trade, for healthy working
That
conditions.
includes me. Yeah.
That includes me.
Yeah.
We have 7 family values. They're on our website. I'm not sure if you saw them, but there are these guideposts for how we live our lives and how we guide and run the company. And during COVID, we really leaned into them. But one of them that we did not, it's called honor yourself. So honor yourself to honor the world.
Mhm.
Another way of saying, have your cup be full. And we just really realized that that was something we were talking to women about and that we weren't doing. And so we started putting some agreements in place. So I personally like the context of an agreement versus a boundary,
Mhm.
because in a boundary, this is just my thinking, okay, but a boundary is like it either is going to be crossed or it's like a stop, right?
Mhm.
Where an agreement is something that's collaborative, made with usually another person, where both people are in on the conversation. And then if the agreement is broken, well, then there's something to look at and something to have a conversation around. Where if a boundary is broken, it's sort of like one person's upset, right?
Right.
So we started creating these agreements with, specifically with my husband. I started making these agreements. I will be in bed by 10. I am not staying up late. And then when from time to time, if we have a big conference or something, I let him know, hey, this is a night I am staying up until midnight. Now, he personally doesn't mind. He's there. He's the best husband on the planet. He supports me endlessly, but it's mostly like me speaking my agreement out loud to another person so I can hear it and honor it for myself.
And also, he can help keep you accountable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sleep is one place for me that I can tell when that's the first place that I will like break an agreement to myself, staying up too late.
Yeah. I was like that, and also the putting in the 12 18-hour days, and I've really come to recognize there comes a point where my brain is just tired, we're in diminishing returns, and it's just
Absolutely.
I could sit here and force myself to do this for another 2 hours, but what I produce is not going to be quality, and I'd rather go rest my brain and crochet for an hour and go to sleep early and wake up early the next day refreshed than push and push and push and push. And I used to be literally 12 18-hour days, day in day, and then you feel, you literally, your body hurts, you feel sick, you feel run down, you feel that burnout feeling, and I literally can't do it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get irritable with my kids. I don't know if you've had this experience too. It's called Parkinson's Law. I think I read this in like 4 Hour Work Week 100 years ago.
It's
But
familiar.
um, yeah, it says that things will expand to take up the space that it
Oh yeah.
has. And specifically, it's talking about time. And I
Hmm.
would notice that too. If I had
Hmm.
an hour until something was due, I would get
Hmm.
it done. Oh, but if I could get to it tonight, then it would take me an hour today and then 2 hours at night. And I would just give myself more time, burning myself out.
Hmm.
Where if I just make it shorter, like I used to pick up my daughter at 3:30, and now it's 5. Well, I'm not really producing that much more in that hour and a half, but I'm sure just sitting at my desk working and taking up that time. So that's something I tried to do too, is without stressing myself out, give myself short deadlines where I
Hmm.
can't move something, but I have to get it done.
Yeah, and the other part of that for me is I'll say I'm going to give myself an hour to work on this thing, and I do one thing at a time. I think that multitasking myth, we've all broken it. We all know it's BS. My brain just can't do it. And if you're going to do something
Yeah.
well, just focus on the one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find it hard that your mind keeps flitting around to back, wants to take on and do something
When
well?
it doesn't, I know my brain is tired. And so I get up and take a break and I come back. It's funny. So my both of my kids have ADHD. Both my siblings have ADHD.
Mm.
My father, late in life, was diagnosed with ADHD. So when I asked my kids, ADHD therapist, should I get tested for ADHD? She was like, no, you have it. Don't worry. So,
Oh,
and
don't bother with the
she's like,
test.
save your money. But what's funny is even if you have ADHD, and everybody has different, it's a spectrum. Everybody's different, and different people struggle with focus in a different way. And so I'm one of those people that it takes time for me to get into the, what do they call it, the zone, into hyper
Mm-hmm.
focus or focus. It
Mm-hmm.
takes me a little bit longer to get into it, but then once I'm in it, I can be locked in there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I start to get, my brain gets tired, then my my mind wanders and then I, take a break for a minute.
You know that you need to.
So one time my youngest was studying for a final and they were kind of struggling with it. And I said, well, let's both sit at the dining room table and we'll do there's this method. I forget what it's called, but you set a timer and you work for 25 minutes and then you take a break for 5 minutes and then you set the timer again for 25 minutes. And I said, well, we'll work in spurts. Well, what we found was that worked for them because they could turn into focus mode right away and get that 25 minutes in and then take the break. Whereas it takes me 15, 20 minutes to get into focus. And then all of a sudden the timer goes off and I'm like, dang it, I got 10 minutes in. That's not working for me. So, you have to find what works for you. Some people are early morning people. There's this great article. One of my favorite podcasts is called The Knowledge Project, and it's by the Farnham Street blog, and you can go to fs.blog. And years ago, kind of what started me on this whole journey was this article there called Are You a Maker or Are You a Manager? And so it talks about how, and there's science behind this, about the kinds of focus and concentration you need when you're a maker and the kind of concentration and focus you need when you're a manager and you're responding to things. You're kind of taking in and reacting, right? Whereas when you're making something, you really have to focus and have concentrated time and no interruptions, and like what happens to your brain every time you get interrupted and how much time it takes to get back into it and everything. And so I've always tried to really kind of be mindful of that. And in the role I have to do both things. So I have to block maker time and manager time, and I think we all
separate it
that.
so your brain can really go get focused on that, whichever role you're in at the time.
Yeah. So there are times where I block a focus or a hold in my calendar so that, our Teams has the red thing on not available, and then I can get my work done. But then there are other times where it's like open door policy and people can interrupt me. So I don't know, I'm just rambling about my own ADHD.
No, I think it's real. I mean, I think it's valuable. And I recently came across something called Flow Research Institute. They have a whole program. Well, my friend did it and they gave me sort of the condensed version. It's really interesting. I think if you just Google it, you'll find their website, but it talks about some of those things, that how often we're interrupted, how long on average it takes to come back into it. And then they give some really great tips for how to keep yourself focused and minimize this distraction. They call something, what do they call it? Basically how your computer, your head is like a computer, your brain. So if you can keep the like RAM and the memory that it's using low, when you go into a work session, you can be much more effective. So anyway, it's very, very interesting.
I'll check that out.
I'm not an expert, but I've experienced it and played around with it. And when I do it fully, I come out of these sessions, these flow sessions, it feels like I just had a power nap. I'm so rejuvenated. It's incredible. So yeah, it's and it takes some good structures and practice.
Well, before I let you go, any other insights or thoughts as a working mom entrepreneur around, what you've done for yourself to either, allow space for yourself or, counteracting those limiting beliefs or those voices in our heads, those imposter syndrome moments? Like, I know we all face those things. Any thoughts there?
Oh, I have done and do so much work around that. And gosh, where to start? It's a practice that I'm in right now to exactly that. I have an alarm set 3 times a day where it goes off and I stop and I check in on, I'm just going to shorthand it and talk about what are the thoughts going through my mind. What are the thoughts? I also look at my bodily sensations, my emotional sensations. And what I find is I have about 5 general outputs. I'm always worried about something. I'm always saying this to myself. I'm always thinking this. And so it's like, okay, how do if that's just going to be on autopilot all the time, I'm not there. It's just cruising. I have nothing to do with generating those thoughts. How can I reduce the amount of energy I put on them? But it takes me recognizing it,
finding the pattern,
that running the show. So that's one thing I do. I've done a lot of work with Landmark Worldwide. I just come back from a David Bayer conference, who's incredible. I'd never heard of him before. And a lot of it is, you might really like David Bayer. He's a lot about mindset and business. It's just this transformational work. And I think there's so many ways to access it and, just I don't know, get curious, get interested, explore. It's something that I'm always trying to just be a constant practice coming from what's possible. Again, to start loop back to where we started, but what's possible? There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. We have our own unique, gifts, and we have our own unique junk that we say to ourselves. And I'm going to put more energy on my gifts. And it takes work.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And it's a practice. But if we can reduce the significance, the drama we put towards it, the like, there's something wrong with me. If we can reduce that, it just can keep us having more time in what we're really here for, these missions that we have, what we really want to produce and create in the world. So, I could go off on that forever.
I love that. I love that, like making an appointment to really take a moment and notice what's happening, because that really is the beginning, isn't it? Like just being aware.
And then be able to laugh at it. And Heather, I'm sure you can name the 3 to 5 things that you say to yourself every day. Okay. Okay. And you know what? You're going to say it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And you can start practicing it, and you're going to say it to yourself in 10 years. But what if you reduce the amount of time that it's upsetting or it takes you out? That's what I'm trying to work on.
Yeah. Brilliant. I love it. So, we got to go, but before we do, I'd love for you to tell people how they can find you and become part of your community.
Yes. So pretty much everywhere we're Threads Worldwide. So our website's threadsworldwide.com, Facebook and Instagram, we're at Threads Worldwide. And then me personally, which I am getting better at social media, mark my words, I'm Angela.threadsworldwide on Instagram.
Perfect. Okay. Well, great. We'll make sure to put links on our show notes and on our website. And this has been a really wonderful conversation. So nice to meet you. I love what you're doing.
So fun to meet
Keep
you.
going.
Thank you. And we didn't talk about this before, but I want to offer everybody a 20% off code. So let me get that coordinated. You can put it in the show notes.
Perfect.
And then people can use that, and I'll give you the time frame and the code.
Fantastic. We will definitely do that. Thank you so much again. And thank you so much for all your insights.
Wonderful to meet you. I feel like we could have talked about any of those things for another 3 hours.
I know, right?
Let's do it again.
I would love to. That would be great.
That's a Hard No is a production of Clever Girl Marketing, my little agency in Cleveland, in partnership with our friends at Evergreen Podcasts. Many thanks to our amazing team, including Maura Del Rosario, our production and marketing coordinator, Noah Fouts, our amazing producer, editor, and composer who wrote our theme music and performed it with his band, The Big Leagues, and our new video producer and editor, Kay Holmberg. You can find show notes and resources on our website, and you can find other fun stuff on our socials. We're Hard No Podcast. Find your no, then say it with me.
That's a